Hey, and welcome to episode 32 Property Mastermind podcast with Hilary Saxton. And today we're talking, who is Bob Andersen? I came up with the idea of this because we just thought a lot of people don't actually know who Bob is. And for those of you who do, it's always, I'm going to get up close and personal with Bob. You're going to get up close and personal. So welcome to episode 32. Let's jump in and you're going to find out some pretty interesting stuff. Hey, Bob.
Hey there.
We're in episode 32. Who is Bob Andersen?
Oh, yeah, well, good question.
It's a good question, but hey, before we get into it, giving away the book, as usual, Bob's happy face down the bottom here. If you're interested in winning a copy of Secrets of Property Millionaires Exposed with the multitude of people's property strategies, just send me an email in a question, or write a favourable comment on our YouTube or Apple podcast or somewhere and let me know, and you can win one. And this week, this book is going out to somebody who sent me an email about very thankful that would help them with a past episode. So this is going out to Joe Neems. Thanks, Joe, so much. You will get a copy of this in the mail. I'll have to email you now for your address, but really appreciate you making contact and thank you for the great comments. If you are enjoying our podcast, please share them with a friend. And if you're interested in property development and want to learn more about what we do, check out propertymastermind.com.au. Anyway, that's enough about that. I don't know if you can hear the dog barking and sniffing in the background. Hopefully not. But anyway, who is Bob Andersen?
Bob Andersen with an S-E-N.
It's Bob Andersen, S-E-N. So who is Bob Andersen?
Andersen with an S-E-N?
Andersen with an S-E-N.
That would be me.
That would
my
be
Danish ancestry. Way back in Granddad on my dad's side. There's some Danish in there.
Actually, if you watch this on YouTube, you'll notice the difference in our skin colour. Bob is so Danish, so he has a real pink hue, like he's a naturally pink colour, and I have European ancestry. We think it's Portuguese, so I'm quite olive. If I go outside, I go yellow, and then I go brown. Bob goes pink and pink. Yeah,
so, well, we lived up near the Arctic. I think I got Viking ancestry. I think I've got a bit of Viking in me.
That would not surprise me
Absolutely.
in the slightest. So this episode is completely off the cuff. Bob has no idea the questions I'm going to ask him. And to be completely honest, I haven't really thought about what I'm going to ask him anyway. But we usually have such good conversations. I thought I'm going to ask questions that people might be interested in.
This could be a bit scary.
So what we do know about you, Bob, most of us know that you went to university for 6 months and gave up after 6 months because you...
Is that what most people know? Is that what I'm noted for? This is what I'm famous for.
You tell people.
I'm famous for going to university for 6 months.
And then now you just decide to hire people who went to university.
Well, that's the beautiful thing about property development, isn't it? That, we could have left in year 9 or 10, not even got a certificate of any sort, became a property developer. Now, everybody we hire, and sometimes we fire, nearly all have degrees. Not that it's a matter of like getting even on people with degrees because we didn't. It's just that, property developers, we need experts, and most of them have a degree. But we're at the top of the pile. We're property developers. So, 6 months at uni, I studied industrial chemistry. So you can see why I probably didn't see it out.
I could imagine you going to sleep on that.
It was killing me.
It would have.
Analytical chemistry, inorganic chemistry, organic chemistry, physics 3, maths 3. I mean, seriously.
Ugh.
And me spending the rest of my life in a white lab coat. No.
You don't look bad in white.
I did well last 6 months, I reckon.
So we know that, uni wasn't for you. You did a bit of work and then you went out and you're very entrepreneurial. There was that point when you had your car accident and you're lying in bed and you decided after you got over feeling sorry for yourself. These are your words, I know them. Yeah. So, and you tell the story to people. So you got to the point where you said, I want to make money. Who makes money? Because you'd lost everything. You'd had cash businesses and then you'd lost everything and you're living at mum and dad's.
Yeah.
And then you went property development.
Yeah, I did. And that was a big jump. Like as you said, I had a nasty car accident. I was off for a good 18 months and gives you lots of time to think while you're lying on your back, particularly in the first part.
His feet one of his feet's completely bolted together.
Yeah, Mr. Meccano. But Yeah, and you're right. I did feel a bit sorry for myself for the first 6 months. You ask that, why did it happen to me, sort of thing, but you get past that. And I'd used up my money. I was only young. The accident happened on the way home from a mate's 21st, even though I was totally sober. And so I thought I'd got to make money. It's a funny thing. Whatever you're short of is what you think about the most. Like when you're hungry, all you can think about is food.
I'm always hungry. I am always hungry.
Yeah, I know, but you have such a controlled diet, probably, whereas mine might be a bit more out of control. But so I was pretty much down to my last few dollars and back living with mum and dad, and I thought, I have to make money. How do I make money? And I looked around. I had a little bit of a look at the share market. Remember, in these days, this is like the Middle Ages, really. You couldn't jump on the internet or anything. If you learned anything, you went to a library and got a book. And I thought, well, shares, can you make money out of shares? Yeah, you probably can. What about real estate? And real estate sort of gelled with me. I don't know why. My dad was a spray painter and a panel beater, and he only ever owned one property other than the one he lived in, just for a period of time. But it really meant something to me. And I thought, yeah, okay, so property, who makes money? And I looked at real estate agents and I thought, yeah, okay, they sell stuff, they get a commission. And I had a look at valuers. Well, they value stuff, they're probably on salaries. And then it ended up at property development. And I thought, yeah, that suits my entrepreneurial spirit, because I knew, developers are obviously entrepreneurs. And it appeared that they're the ones that make the most money. And I thought, yep, property development's where I'm going.
Hey, how would you like to improve 2022? On the 20th of January at 7 p.m. Sydney time, I hold a free goal setting session Australia-wide to absolutely anybody. You can share this with a friend. There is no upsell. There is no product launch. Will you just register below, and I will send you a link a couple of days prior and probably the day of it. You jump on and you spend 1 hour of your life planning your future. If you'd like to join us, click the link below. When did you realise you were so smart? Because you are incredibly smart. When it comes to property development, it's all learned. But you are so smart. Is it just you're naturally good with numbers, or what do you? Where do you think you're smart to start?
I don't think you have to be brilliant with numbers to be a good property developer. I am pretty good with numbers. I was good at maths, but I mean, the numbers you do for property development are really what you feed into your feasibility calculators these days. They do it all for you.
Or our feasibility calculator. Property Mastermind has one.
Yeah. So as long as you just feed good stuff in, you get the right answer, But I suppose that's almost like, what do I love about property development? I love it because it's dynamic and it's fluid and it changes. Like the property market, just generally. I mean, we're one sector of the property market. We're the pinnacle of the property market, property development.
And why do you say that? Why do you say we are the pinnacle of the property market?
Well, it's where the big money's made in property development. You think of Mirvac, Lendlease, Australand. What do? Do they do 5,000 renos a year? No. Do they buy investments and sit on them for ages? No. What do? Well, they actively create wealth, and they do that through property development. And they also keep a lot of what they developed. So I mean, that's what led me to property development. I could see that's where the money was, and that's what I desperately needed was money. I had to make up for lost time. I'd lost what money I'd have just paying doctor's bills and living, and I had to make money.
You said to me as well that when you were at home lying around, on the recovery, that you got into health and got into reading. So for those of you that don't know, Bob's actually quite a healthy person. You actually look after yourself pretty well. There are things that he believes in that he does health-wise I'm healthy as well, and we both have different things going on that we believe in. Bob doesn't drink water out of a tap. He only drinks it out of a bottle. He uses fluoride-free toothpaste. There's lots of things that you do that the average person wouldn't do.
They're not insane things.
No, they're not. But the average person, a lot of people don't do that sort of thing. No. What was your tipping point around health, and what was the tipping point around your state of mind and money? Was there 3 books? Was it 1? What was it?
I sometimes say to people that car accident was possibly the best thing that happened to me, at least at that point in my life, because it gave me the time to slow down, get out of the fast lane, like I was living life in the fast lane, lots of cash, 3 cash businesses, not sort of thinking much about the future. So it pulled me up and it got me to, on track to where I am now.
Yeah, that can't be the best thing that ever happened to you.
No. 31st of March 2017 was possibly the best thing that's ever happened to me. But what it did, it gave me the time. And so I was interested in health because I was always big on sport. I used to say I went to school for the sport. I was okay academically. But so in that respect, like I was physically active, I was in sport, but not necessarily into health. And so I started reading a lot of books about health because I was trying to recover. And part of the problem with why my recovery is slow is my broken bones weren't knitting. Even though they ended up getting pinned and everything, they weren't knitting. And so, what can I do to get them knitting? And, I started reading a lot about health. And then back in the day, I read a lot of Paul Bragg's books, and that was a lot about juicing. I read stuff about food combinations and all that sort of stuff. So anyway, I got into more healthy living, more healthy lifestyle. I was growing sprouts under my parents' house. I was juicing a lot, and I was watching my food combinations.
Back in those days, your mum would have thought you were a weirdo, did she?
Yeah, probably, but so that was sort of the health thing, because I couldn't do a lot of exercise while I was recuperating. But also I started books, mind books, books for, we might call them mindset books these days. But I mean, these were the old favourites because I remember, this is back a long time ago. And
which one? Which was your favourite?
I think it was like Think and Grow Rich.
I still love that book. If anyone hasn't read that, it is a must read. It's such a good book.
I mean, that's been around like way before I was born.
Oh, so old. Such a good book.
And so, some of the old standards that I read that along the same sort of lines, and that sort of got me thinking right. And that was good, and that was good recuperation as I healed and felt good physically. I felt good mentally, and I was really chomping at the bit. I was also desperate for money, which was a good reason to get into something and into something new. So I learned a lot during that time of incapacity.
And then you healed up, and then what was the next step? How did the property development journey, what was the next step for you on this journey?
Well, I decided I lived in Brisbane. I decided to move to the Gold Coast, and I had this funny thing in my mind that's where you go to make your fortune. You hear all these stories of people making their fortune on the Gold Coast back then. I thought, that's where I'm going. That's where
I'm going there to make my money.
That's where property is really exciting.
Yep.
I'm going to the Gold Coast, and so I packed up my bags. I had $5 left in my bank account, so I borrowed some money off my girlfriend at the time's father.
How much money did you borrow?
Enough to cover 2 weeks. I had to rent a property, so I had to pay 2 weeks rent in advance, as a bond. So enough to cover that, plus 2 weeks rent, and a bit of food.
Your girlfriend's father and not off your parents? Did they not want you to move away?
No, I don't think it was that so much. I don't know.
They probably didn't.
Oh, yeah.
Bob's the young. He's a baby, and he's got two elder sisters that are 9 and 7 years older, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can imagine Mummy wouldn't have wanted you to go.
Could have been that. But I was on pretty good terms with my girlfriend's father anyway, and I just hit him up for a little bit of cash short term.
Yep.
Paid it back pretty quickly. And so here I am on the Gold Coast, living at Main Beach on the Gold Coast in a flat, wanting to get into property. And so where do you go from there? It's only up. But no property development jobs around, nothing that I was qualified for anyway. So I just had to get in the property market.
So how did you support yourself when you were down there at that time? What did you do for money after you'd borrowed the money off your girlfriend's dad?
I did some early morning and night cleaning immediately, and you got to do what you got to do.
You're only like 22 now, aren't you?
Oh, pretty young, yeah. So what I decided to do is get into property, and so I was looking around how I might get into it, what I might get in. I talked to a few real estate agents about sort of selling real estate, but some of them just looked a bit dodgy to me, and it wasn't quite what I was looking for. So while I'm doing that, through a friend of mine, through a contact I had, I was able to do some high-rise cleaning at night and early morning, and so I did that. That kept the money flowing in while I looked around, and then I landed a job at a real estate agency that sold land subdivisions, And that's
I just have to interrupt here because it's so funny, but we'll go somewhere and Bob will go, I used to clean that building, and I'm like, what? and like, honestly, he never ceases to amaze me with a story. Like, there's always something. And I remember, and then there comes out a new story, but it's just so, it's pretty amazing when you think, I used to clean that. So it's that whole, you've got to be prepared to do what you need to do to get to where you go, and that's what you were prepared to do.
Well, that's the sort of person I was, you know.
And you still are. You'll do what it takes to get something done.
Yeah. I mean, it was that way in sport, you know, when I was training, and it was that way if I have to have money to live, I'll do whatever I have to do to get money. That's legal. And so that's what I did. I didn't enjoy the cleaning, but, you know, I did it, and I only did it for a while. I knew it wasn't a career move. I was eventually going to stop it, but, you know, I found a real estate agency that I liked. I think because they were working closely with developers on land subdivisions, and our role was to sell new land subdivisions. We were selling land to builders who were going to build houses to sell, and so I got to talk to developers. You see, this is why I liked it. I had other jobs offered to me selling high-rise apartments at Surfers Paradise. None of that appealed to me, but when I found this job, and I actually approached them. They didn't even have a job. I just went door knocking, but I knew what they did. And I approached a couple of agencies that were doing the similar sort of thing, and then I cracked this one. And I thought, you know, I'll be doing land subdivisions, which really appealed to me from a development point of view. Not that I knew a lot.
I was going to say, did you even know what a land subdivision was?
Well, I knew the difference between building a high-rise apartment block and land subdivisions.
And that was from cleaning them.
Yeah. And so I knew I'd get to talk to developers. I knew that I'd get to sell land. I knew that I'd get to talk to builders that were building houses, and all that sort of stuff appealed to me. And that's why I hunted down that job and did it.
I think just hearing you say that, because for those of you that know Bob, he will sit back and he will listen to what's going on. He's very much I'll suss out what's going on before I interject or before I add too much. You very much do that as a person. You're more likely to stand back and listen.
I'm strategic.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. Because, yeah, you definitely are strategic. So I could see why you would have decided in your head that's probably my best move, and then I'll do it that way. So, yeah, I could see how you would do that, definitely. So you door knocked and they were like, yeah, okay, we'll take you on.
They took me on. I was a young guy.
What were you like when you got the job? Were you like jumping through, you over the moon?
Oh, I was happy because, I mean, at least I was in property now.
Yeah.
You know, and I could get out of cleaning pretty shortly. It was a commission-only job, as they all were back in those days. You didn't get paid a salary or a retainer. And so I knew I'd have to wait a couple of months until the money started coming in. So I was cleaning morning and night and selling, you know, getting going on real estate, starting to sell real estate during the day. And then once the commissions started to flow, I dropped off the cleaning and I haven't been back.
I can concur.
Well, yeah, you know, I've done enough cleaning. I do clean windows pretty well, though.
Okay, so there's no property development courses around. There's no like social platforms. There's no podcast. There's no. I don't even know what I need to know around. That's the thing. How did you know what you needed to know? You knew I want to get into property development, and I need to get into property so I can talk to these guys. So, share the next step of the journey for you.
Well, I'm starting to talk to property developers now because we were, I think, marketing about 4 decent-sized subdivisions at the time. Were you even learning at that point when you got to market them? Did you start understanding things a bit better? Yeah, I did.
Yep.
I found out I could sell. In fact, it didn't take long. I was a top salesman in the office, and so the selling side was good. The commission, the money I was making was good, but it wasn't the end game. It was just a stepping stone on the way.
And you know what? That's a good lesson there, Bob. Sometimes we're on the way to a journey and you do something else, like you started selling and you were good at it, and some people get stuck there and give up their dream. Don't give up your dream.
No, or you stay a real estate salesman forever.
And that's okay if that's what you want to do, but if it wasn't your goal.
No, it wasn't. And it was a stepping stone. But what I'm doing now, I'm starting to talk to the developers and I'm starting to ask them questions because they like me. Well, because I'm selling their land, doing really well, and they like anyone that does that. And I'm asking them questions. I'm also talking to surveyors and planners about the next stages that are coming up, because we need to know, we're selling one stage, when's the next stage coming up, and I'd be watching it getting built, the next stage of a subdivision. You know, we're selling the current 30 lots. When's the next 30 lots, whatever it is, coming on? I'm watching it getting built. I'm getting all excited watching stuff get built. I'm talking to builders. I'm selling their houses.
How much would your confidence have grown?
Well, they're buying a block of land off me, and then they're building a house. And I'm walking through the houses and watching how they get built. And I'd already bought books on owner-builder and, understood the whole building side of things as well. And so I'm watching all this happen, and I'm getting more and more excited about it, and I'm learning a lot. And I'm learning about, how to get a development permit for a land subdivision, and I'm talking about the civil construction. I'm asking the engineer, what's it cost to give, this 30 lots, what's it costing for all the earthworks and the sewage and the water and all that, and he's telling me. Then I'm learning how to put it together into sort of a pretty basic feasibility. All this is going on in the background while I'm selling real estate.
You're teaching yourself in the background.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
good on you.
But asking lots of questions from people that are in the know. And so I'm building up this ever-increasing database of knowledge on how to do stuff, and watching other people do it, and being a part of it, and being on the other end. I'm on one end, I'm talking to people about, how to do the subdivision from the beginning. On the other end, I'm selling the stuff. And we also, what we did there at that particular office, because our game was selling subdivisions. So we're also looking at greenfield acreage, where we've got land that could be subdivided into subdivisions, and then we're finding developers and selling to developers who want to develop it, and then we're selling the end stock. So we're getting like big licks of commission. So we'll sell a site to a developer, and we get the money for selling the site. And then as it's developed, we're getting commission on selling a block of land to a builder.
Wow,
then
so you're getting double commission.
Then the builder builds a house, and then I'm selling that at a much higher value because it's got a house on it now. And so, we're getting, what you call like extra licks out of the selling. Yeah.
So share, and for those that are in our community, most people know this, but if you're new to Property Mastermind, share how you actually got your first break into property development. Yeah,
it's a long story. I'll keep it short for your podcast. I was sitting in the real estate office one Sunday morning. Weekends were often a good selling time back then. It's when a lot of people obviously had the time to get around and buy. And we had a thing what we call front desk. So this would be a roster system for the salespeople. If you're on the front desk on a particular day, you got the first person to walk in, and then you got the first phone call. And I was on front desk Sunday morning. Now, little backstory. About a month prior to this, a fellow had come in and listed a property that he'd bought. And it was what he'd done, he bought a parcel of land off another salesman and he got a development permit to cut it into 4 blocks. 4 blocks land. It was a 4-lot subdivision. He got a DA and he came back and listed it. Anyway, with our office. This particular Sunday morning he came in. And I saw him pull up. I knew him. His name was Tony. And he looked, he's a good-looking guy, had that sort of wavy sort of Italian hair, down to there. He spoke. I think he was born here, but I think his ancestry was Italian. Drove a nice car, and a really nice, friendly guy. I liked him. I'd only spoken to him once before. And
how much older than you was he at the time?
Probably about 15 years.
Okay.
He's in his 30s somewhere. So he dropped in and he said, he remembered my name, which was impressive. I hadn't spoken to him much. And he said, "Oh, Bob, how you going?" He said, "Look, just wondering if you had any bites on my site, meaning have we had any buyers, any lookers at the site that he was selling that had an approval for 4-lot subdivision?" And I said, "No, Tony." I said, "But," and this is the sentence that changed my life, "I would love to develop that site myself. I just don't have enough money." And he was standing up. I can visualise this all these years later as though it was happening right now in front of me.
I get goosebumps when you say it.
And then when I said that, he actually took a seat. Like I think it was just a quick question. He was just sort of passing by. I think he went to the newsagent next door, got his newspaper, and he was just sort of saying it. And then he sat down, and then he started asking me. He said, "Oh, where did this come from, Bob? Like, why do you say that? Why do you want to be a developer?" And then I started to tell Tony about, why I wanted to be a developer. And next thing I'm like giving him my story about my car accident and all the time off and my desire to be a property developer, the fact that I'm working at this office just as a stepping stone on my way to being a developer. And anyway, he wanted to know all about me, my family. It's sort of going on. I thought, geez, there's a lot of questions, just about, because all he really wanted to know is somebody looking his block of land yet. We got a buyer coming up. And at the end of it,
Did you actually tell him that you'd been like working the 2 jobs? Did you?
I told him everything.
Did you tell him that you were
I'd given up
a sports excellence person at school? You told him you could.
No, I didn't tell him that. Yeah. But I told him why I wanted to be a developer. I told him, that I had the accident and all this sort of thing, and how I ended up here. It was a stepping stone. But that sentence where I said to him, Tony, I'd love to develop it myself. I just don't have enough money. That's what picked his. That's what made him sit down. And after the interrogation, very friendly one, all the same, he said, Bob, I'm going to help you. I think he said, I want to help you realise your dream. And I didn't quite grab it. I said,
hello?
What do you mean, Tony? He said, you told me you want to be a developer. You told me you wanted to develop the site that I own and you haven't got enough money. He said, I'm going to help you do it. And like it didn't make sense to me. I said, well, thanks for helping me. I can understand what that meant. But I said, you might not have heard the other bit, Tony. I haven't got enough money. I can't buy it. He said, no. He said, money's irrelevant. And I thought, geez, money's not irrelevant, Tony.
Money's very relevant in your world.
Almost had none recently. I got a bit. I've saved up. I'm getting good commission. I'm saving some money, but not enough. And he did, true to his word. So what he did, this became what we call a vendor finance deal. And basically, Tony took me to his bank. I signed a contract to buy it.
How long ago? Like, was that the next day? That was a Sunday?
This is the coming week.
Okay. Within a week.
So what it is basically is Tony helped me borrow some money from his bank, as it turned out. The bank lent me 80% of the cost that I needed. I had to put in 20%. But Tony lent me the land. So basically, it's a bit of a story how it happened, but it was a no money down deal. Without going into it, is Tony enabled me via a vendor finance thing where I settled on the land and I paid Tony for the land later. I gave him some money from the bank, so I basically paid for half the land, and I owed Tony the money on the other half of the land at an interest component, but I didn't have to pay the other half of the land until I developed and sold the lots.
Could you believe
that's called a vendor finance deal.
Were you pinching yourself?
Yeah. And so he showed me how to do it all the way through the project, showed me how to do it, how to get the civil contractor in, and built the block of land. And sure enough, at the end of it, when I sold the lots, I paid the bank back first. I paid Tony back the money I owed him, secondly, and at the end was my profit. And I did a project, 4-lot subdivision, put no money into the deal at all. Tony showed me how to do it.
So at what point, Bob, did you realise the enormity of what he'd done? It might not have been that day, not knowing the whole process he was going to take you through. But what point did you think, my goodness, this is a life changer?
It dawned on me along the way because, when I realised how it was going to happen, and I understood then the mechanics of it, but the enormity of what he was doing and why he was doing it. Why would you, really? And so I got to know Tony a bit better, and what he was, I didn't realise at the time, he was very well set up in property. He used to amalgamate development sites along the coast, along the Gold Coast, Surfers Paradise, Broadbeach, Main Beach, those sorts of areas, and package them up for developers. And he was using options, he was using all sorts of, structured contracts and finance, doing all the, clever stuff and making quite a lot of money out of it, which he obviously had. I could tell he was fairly well off. But that didn't explain to me why would he do it for me. So eventually I had to ask him along the way.
And what did he say? What was the reason he did it for you?
Well, the reason he did it for me, as it turned out, someone had done it for him.
Oh.
15 years earlier when Tony was starting out, it was a Jewish chap, he told me, who met Tony, and Tony was a bit like me, full of bravado, full of desire, 10 foot tall and bulletproof, or so we thought, and not even fully knowing what we don't know. But this Jewish guy had seen something in Tony, because this Jewish guy was very wealthy in property, and seen something in Tony, and he'd helped Tony get established, and then Tony had gone on and become what he was, very successful. What the Jewish guy told Tony, because Tony had said to the Jewish guy, why are you doing this? Why have you done this for me? And the Jewish guy said, well, I've done it because he saw in Tony, the Jewish guy saw in Tony what he was many years ago. And so he said to Tony, one day you're going to meet somebody and you're going to see in them what you saw in yourself.
Goosebumps. Has anyone else got goosebumps listening to this?
And you're going to do the same for them. And Tony, That's why he asked me all about myself, that day, because he wasn't just going to do this favour for anybody who he thought mightn't be deserving. And that's why he wanted to know a lot about me and my history and the car accident, my desire, to do this. And that's why after like 20 minutes of, intense, not quite grilling in a nice way, why he made the decision
it was
to help
almost
me.
an interview.
It was an interview. It was as to whether I was worthy for him to help. And I wonder,
that story. What's the other book? He did the same thing for the guy who wrote Think and Grow Rich. Was it that one? No, it's just Dale Carnegie.
Yeah,
same story. That's a really similar story. Interviewed somebody and they just said the right things and made the life change. So, Bob, after that development, did you keep in touch with Tony very often?
I did for a while, but we did sort of lose touch because we were in sort of different directions, different doing things, and I was pretty busy and intense, sort of doing what I do, trying to establish myself. That got me going, that first project.
And then you had children, like you got married, and had a couple
I had
of
more
kids,
projects to do.
And more projects. You had a lot more going on.
I had my second project. I did it as a joint venture with my sister's boyfriend who put the money in.
Did Tony sort of help you a little bit with that?
I know. I got through that one myself. Tony taught me a lot, and I managed to get through there okay myself, and I'm sort of up and going now. I've done 2 projects, made money out of my first 2 projects, never put any money into them, slightly different types.
And all in your 20s?
Yeah, and so I'm sort of, I'm going on my way, And so that meant I could give up selling real estate and start to do some developing.
So as far as, that's how you got started into property, anyone listening to this podcast today, and it's like early in the year, so it's a really good time to think if this is something that you want to be doing, what would you tell, knowing what you know, having done what you've done, like lived a life of property from your 20s, developed so much, what would you say somebody who wants to do it?
I think be really clear on why you want to do it, and is it a passion? Is it something you really want to do? Or is it just something you think, I could do that and I could make lots of money? Property development, you can make a lot of money out of it if you do it well. And if you don't do it well, it can hurt you. And so I think you need a strong why, a good reason to do it other than just purely making money for money's sake. And if there's a passion in there, if you feel that property is it, and maybe you're stepping up from, doing renos even, not that you have to, that if it's a passion, it's something you really want to do and you feel some drive in you to do it, and then you realise that you can't just rush into it, that there's a lot of moving parts in a property development. It's going to take a bit of time for you to learn and to educate yourself on how to do it, and you're prepared to put in the effort and the education to do it, and under the realisation that sometimes things won't go perfectly for them. You're going to have detours and speed bumps and times when you're going to second guess yourself whether you made the right decision. And so understanding that, and the desire is still strong and it's still doing it, you're willing to educate yourself and invest in yourself, because it's going to be a career move probably eventually. Then once you've answered those questions properly to yourself, then you should do it. And don't muck around and don't think and don't procrastinate and don't second guess it and don't be influenced by other people. Do it.
As I would say, Nike. Just do it.
You say that all the time.
Just do it. Yeah. So, and what would be, I suppose what I'm hearing you saying there is clarity, be clear, and that the reason you're doing it, not just I want to make money, is it property development that you want to use to make money? That's what you're saying.
Is it a vehicle? And understand there are risks.
Yep.
And you need to mitigate those risks as best you can. And through, like I said, through getting educated.
So I'm going to jump back now because I know the answer to this and others don't. So somebody did it for Tony and then Tony did it for you. So did you do it for somebody else, Bob?
Well, I did it for a guy called Ben eventually. And like these days we call that paying it forward, but during those days I don't think the expression was around. I'd never heard it anyway. But I did meet a young guy once. I have to admit, I wasn't all that keen on helping him at first. He tracked me down where I was working at the time. This is before I'd written a book on property development with my son Luke, but it's before I had a course, before I was sort of well known. And I was quite happy doing my thing sort of keeping quiet, flying below the radar. I was doing pretty well. And
Just developing property.
Yeah, and Ben found me off the back of the book. So Luke and I wrote a book in 2006. It's out of print now. But he'd, real quickly, an opportunity had landed in his lap that he didn't know what to do with. Potentially it's what we call a joint venture with a landowner. He was smart enough to know that there was an opportunity, that there was a deal there, but didn't know how to handle it. He had a look around. He tried to find some books and read up about it. He found my book, and then he realised that I lived in the same city. So somehow or other, I don't know how he tracked me down, because I didn't even have a website or anything. And he tracked me down and he came to my office and he said, "Would you help me, do this? I know I've got a deal." And I asked him, I said, "Yeah, you have." And but I wasn't I wasn't all that keen, because I was sort of happy to do my own thing, and I didn't immediately realise it. This is many years after the whole Tony thing, and he had a bit of a bad headache at the time, and he ended up like two-thirds way through the conversation, he had to leave. And I sort of felt sorry for the young guy.
How old was he at the time?
Oh, Ben was, he's in his later 20s, but then he got back onto me again. He phoned me this time, and we finished the conversation. I said, do I really want to do this? Am I that keen, Anyway, I did. And
so you paid it forward to him?
So, yeah, we got him through that project, 20-lot subdivision. And as it is, we ended up becoming friends, and still are, even though he lives on the other side of the world these days. And he ended up coming and working with me in my property development company, and I taught him a lot more. And he used to operate a lot of the property development syndicates that I used to do. And, Ben Smith was his name.
So I wonder if Ben paid it forward to somebody else.
I don't know. I didn't ask him. I didn't say that he should or had to, so he was under no obligation to. But I know that Ben did work with me a lot, not only in the syndicates but also in our mentoring program. And I know that Ben did pass on a lot of the knowledge that I taught him to other students. So in a way he did. And in a way that's what we do. We sort of pay it forward in a big way. We do get paid for it, but that's what we do in the education side of things.
So Bob, you've just alluded to the property education, and everybody listening probably, I'm sure, knows propertymastermind.com.au, Australia's best property development education. And you've educated most of the other educators, so So why would you not learn
courses with students? So that's good. Good on them for having the crack,
exactly. And they learnt from the best. They probably know some stuff. But what else does Bob Andersen do in the property world that people might not know?
Well, I think most people know we're obviously in the education side of property development, but we do projects. I mean, you're involved in projects, Hilary, yourself. I think at least 3 at the moment. I still do projects, doing a retirement village at the moment, so that's keeping me engaged. Yeah, look, that's property. That keeps us entertained.
For those that don't know Bob, he's can't help himself. People bring him deals, he can't help. He's always looking for another retirement village. I'm always astounded. I'm like, is that not, what are you doing? I'm always sort of shocked but in awe at the same time. He's just like, you have to check it out. But I suppose I was thinking Property Mastermind, and then you've got Positive Property Strategies.
Yeah, well, that raises capital for developments as well, Positive Property Strategies. And, I mean, I'm always working on things on the side, as you know, like talking to a couple of public companies about some opportunities, looking at some funding from offshore, like all sorts of things, anything related to property. I'm interested in,
So who is Bob Andersen? If you had to sum him up in about 20 words, Bob, how would you say he is?
Well, he's a guy that's had an interesting life, a lot of it in property. It's a guy that I think I'll die with my property boots on, but always looking for life balance as well. And that's not always easy to get, but I think we do pretty well with our life balance these days. It hasn't always been that way for me. But, it's a guy that I think, I'd be pretty satisfied with my property life. To use your expression, sitting in the rocking chair on the front deck, in your later years, thinking back on what you've done with your life. I think I'm what I've done in the property, particularly in the property education space, and you're heavily involved in that with me, but what we've been able to instill in other people and to see the results, the ability to be able to change people's lives, financial lives, in a big way. And I think that would be my legacy, something I'd be really proud of in the future, more so than particular developments that I've done. I mean, they're good to think about, but I mean, to change others' lives, I think is much more important than something you might have done personally, you know. And I think that's the thing that I'll look back on. That's Bob Andersen. That's what he's about. And yeah, that's what I'll be thinking about if the day ever comes. When I'm on the front deck in my rocking chair.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll ever see you do that. Yeah, I don't know if you'll do that. I just don't know. Anyway, thanks, Bob, for sharing. I just thought people might want to know who is Bob Andersen. And for those that find this interesting, yeah, just give us a favourable comment. But you've kind of learned a little bit more about Bob, which you'll understand now his desire and passion when it comes to property development.
Yeah, it goes back a long way.
It does.
It goes back from the night I went to sleep and ran into a bridge. That was the beginning of it.
That was the beginning. But then just deciding it was going to be the thing that you did, that you wanted, and then just going and doing it. And we talk to plenty of people in our community that have that same desire. So it's possible. And
I love working with those sorts of people.
Oh, same. Oh, my goodness. I love working with people who are passionate. I will bend over backwards to support them. I so will. Anyway, we hope you found that episode interesting, and we will catch you next week.
Shall do.
Bye.
Bye.